Okay, we may have a game on our hands. We may have everything all sorted out. I'm Llama. I'm gonna be joined by Chaz. How you doing?
I am doing well. Doing
So
well,
for
Mama.
okay, thanks. For people wondering, we just had a remake, so a very sudden remake, so we're getting into it. But wow, these bans and picks are actually flying out. I was definitely not sure that we were going to be picking and banning so fast. It looks like nobody wants to play against Omni, which means that Big Red Bears managed to get the drow.
Dire team ban.
Yep, and it's just mimicking what they were banning and picking banning before the remake. I guess we had the first pick wrong, but standard stuff so far. I mean, nothing too surprising just yet.
Radiant team
Yeah,
ban.
I think that it's always interesting to see how much basically the collegiate league does mimic what's popular in the current meta, but also to see where it diverts, right? Because I am expecting maybe there's some comfort picks here for
10
a couple
seconds
players.
remaining.
Someone's probably going to be like, I'm really comfortable in this hero. Maybe we'll get something a bit out of the
5
ordinary,
seconds remaining.
but we'll just have to see. It's going to be the Huskar ban. Makes a lot of sense with Oracle being
Reserve
around, but it
time.
just Huskar not a super popular hero right now.
Dire team
Yeah,
ban.
and not at all. And even to the same extent, Oracle has kind of been falling out. The nerfs weren't that severe, but severe enough to kind of knock them down a peg and bring some other supports into the limelight. But
Yeah, I
it's
do.
Huskar Oracle is definitely not
10
something you want to play
seconds
against.
remaining.
I completely agree with you, right? The Oracle got some slight
5
nerfs,
seconds
and it makes
remaining.
you wonder if the Huskar pickup or the Huskar ban out was really
Reserve
a
time.
good catch here from Big, or sorry, from Drexel. I'm just still astounded that one of them has a dragon and one of them has a bear when last week we had like a cat and a dog or something as the ferocious animals. I don't remember. We did
The
not
you
have
yeah
good mascots last week.
the UC teams, for whatever reasons, have like anteaters and like an Aggie. I don't know what an Aggie is,
Is
but
it
all these
stands for
East Coast schools.
agriculture because it's an agriculture school originally, at least. Like that's I'm not even kidding. It's
So
a
their mascot's not an animal; it's a concept.
yeah, and it's I think they use a
Wow,
horse sometimes. Like I'm pretty sure they use a horse sometimes, but I could be
that's
wrong.
unreal.
Radiant
They
Then
team
could
ban.
they could have chose dragons or big red bears, and they
yeah,
chose
I'm
agriculture.
actually pretty happy that we have a dragon and a big red bear. And I actually like that apparently Drexel's University, if you look at this, folks, in game they have one with a Western looking dragon, and here we've got a much more
10
Asian looking
seconds
dragon. So we
remaining.
even have like Drexel, they got a bunch of dragons. They'll probably not pick a
5
dragon though,
seconds
because this is
remaining.
Dota and none of the dragons are strong right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
not really.
very disappointing. Either way, they get rid of Venge
Dire
on
team
Drexel
pick.
because you don't want to deal with a Drow and a Venge. While Big Red Bears get rid of Terrorblade Mirana. Murana obviously did receive the nerf on the Aghanim Scepter, but it
Mhm.
still feels really strong, so I do like this pickup.
10
I
seconds
do
remaining.
wonder though if they had some other intel, because I wouldn't necessarily ban out the Murana
5
unless I know
seconds
that you've got a
remaining.
player who's really good at landing those arrows.
Yeah, that's very true. And I guess the Mirana does
Reserve
work
time.
fairly well with the Faceless Void and the Ogre Magi, who both have been such staple picks of the CSL season this far. It's a pretty safe ban, I would argue, in CSL in general. But on top of that, if you have a Mirana player, someone who's very comfortable on that hero, yeah, definitely a worthy ban.
We're gonna finally maybe get into another pickup. It's gonna be Cuddle, so this is already some
Radiant
decent
team
damage
pick.
into the fight and also some good ways of making sure that maybe Drow isn't wrecking through your
Dire
team with the
team
blinding
pick.
light.
I do like the Coddle. It seems the Ogre Coddle combo is actually fairly good. Good with Void. I like the pickup. It's pretty solid.
10 seconds
Yeah, I
remaining.
do. I guess I think this is partly comfort for
5
laning.
seconds
There are definitely
remaining.
maybe you can argue some supports who have better impact into the chronosphere, but as you said, it seems fine. And
Reserve
Ogre can be a
time.
real irritant, right, in the early phases of the game. Just 2 points in that ignite can really get you, cause havoc and get you kills in mid lane and so on, so be interesting to see.
And Mana Leak is just such a scummy ability against the Slardar. He's gonna get absolutely nothing from that lane. So definitely a good denial pick. As throughout the CSL season, as we've seen these Slardars get their Blink Daggers early and earlier, the games have just been so lopsided. Throw the Oracle onto that, which pretty much guarantees a team fight victory if the ultimate's up, and it's pretty rough.
The other thing to mention that I forgot about was for these teams. I believe it's that Cornell is one of the strong teams coming into this from last
Absolutely.
year. How far did they go? How deep are we talking? Do we know? Do we have intel?
Yeah, the fall season they started 5-2,
Radiant
which is
team
a very respectable record, following up with a 6-1 record in spring, getting all the way to the semifinals in the playoffs before losing to Michigan. So that's quite the deep run that Cornell made last year. Drexel doesn't have the same statistical strength that Cornell had last year. They were 2-4 and 3-4 in fall and spring, respectively.
5 seconds remaining.
That's not to discount this current team at all, because
Dire
college
team
players come
win.
in and out so rapidly in their studies, and more time to improve, less time to play, things like that. So many different factors. But if there's one certainty, I would argue that Cornell will be looking pretty strong out of the gates here.
And apparently Drexel are full of mighty cheesers.
10
They have
seconds
gone for the
remaining.
Phantom Lancer Coddle
Yes.
lane. But that's actually, it's even better
5
now,
seconds
right, than it
remaining.
used to be. I feel like there was a time where PL Coddle were picked up together, and it's
Radiant
better
team
now due to the way that Chakram works. And the only thing I would be worried about here is the lack of synergy between the Faceless Void and the Phantom Lancer.
Yeah, Phantom Lancer as isn't necessarily the strongest pick in the meta. There's
10
other cores
seconds
that you'd
remaining.
probably like to have, and I'm okay with the Phantom Lancer into the lineup that Cornell's
5
bringing.
seconds remaining.
But overall, the Faceless Void does not work very well with the Phantom Lancer, as you mentioned. Ogre Magi's Ignite is only going to work on one of them.
Radiant team
Unless you get the
win.
multicast, then sure, you have multiple illusions hitting very fast. But all in all, I guess an all right pick, and as you were mentioning, possibly a comfort pick. And that's the best things these teams could hope for. It's a comfortable pick that they could show their strength on.
10
Yeah, also a
seconds
solid gap
remaining.
closer. I hear that depending on the farm levels relative to each
5
other, a
seconds
PL can
remaining.
certainly cause a lot of problems for Storm once the diffusal's up. So we'll just have to see
Reserve
exactly how the
time.
laning phase breaks down. And right now, it's hard to say without Drexel's mid, but obviously Storm Spirit with the amped up damage coming from a Drow normally performs really well in lane.
Yeah, not too much left for Drexel to really punish the Storm Spirit. And that Templar Assassin gone as well. It's probably not going to be a priority mid laner for Drexel. That's going to be left in the pool, that is, to deal with that Storm Spirit.
Yeah, I think that we should for Big Red Bears, they're taking their time on this, but obviously just another range support seems pretty sensible for them. So I like the Earthshaker ban out from Drexel, obviously worried about all the PL illusions, but if Big Red Bears can get themselves another wave clear hero, there are a couple other supports running around with ways of kind of knocking out waves of PLs like Lino or someone. It would do well because of the Drow buff up. So
I would also potentially like to see the Lion here. Lion works pretty well against the Void with his quick initiations. Decent, I would argue, against the Ogre and the Keeper. Not particularly well known to be good against either, but against the Phantom Lancer, he'll at least have an impact in team fights. So, kind of thinking Lion for the side of Cornell.
oh, they're gonna, for Big Red Bears, take all the time. It's funny considering, even though, yes, it was a remake, how fast the first part of the draft went, and then they're really worried, I guess, about making sure they have the right thing.
I mean,
to
they had
deal
2
with
minutes of
PL.
reserve time. You don't get that time back. They might as well spend it. Ooh, Sky.
Dire team
So this is interesting, right? Sky has some benefits in that can silence up the PL and so on, but I think a really hard part of Skyrath is he does fall off, and he will not really help against the later game PL. Sorry, I'm just laughing because even not just because of the DCs, but also like it screws up the stats and everything when you pull them up. There are only 7 people here.
The obligatory Dota pause at the beginning of the game. I also disconnected. Here we are.
Just gonna be folks getting their business together. I know both of these teams had some technical issues beforehand. Should be figuring it out. Here we go. Almost all there. Just looking at these two lineups with Medusa to round things out, I think this is a really interesting mid pickup, right? But not able to be nearly as impactful in the game, at least for getting team fights initiated, as a Storm Spirit.
I just noticed their names are Drexel Dagons. That's so clever.
Pretty quality. I got into a long discussion about the Dagon because apparently it should be said. I think it.
Dagon.
No, I don't. I think I say Dagon. I think it's meant to be said Dagon because it's actually a Mesopotamian goddess or goddess. But then a lot of people think of it in the context of Lovecraft, which is where the like more creepy undertones come from. Hence, it being like a weapon that immediately kills people. Anyway, just Dota things, just
Right?
fun little things as we load on in. We're gonna see Faceless Void. He places this really early ward. It's in a pretty good spot. It doesn't block the camp, so they might not realize that it's there. And since he TP'd out and put it, it means that he may be able to get away with that one.
Yeah, he's still going to have a really rough time in that lane. The Drow Ranger is just... Or, sorry, not the Drow Ranger.
Yeah, the Drow Ranger.
Yeah, Drow
Yeah.
to an extent, and it just... Skywrath Mage as a hero is the no-fun support where... Level 1, he will blow his entire mana pool on ensuring that you do not have a good time. Like, that is his sole goal.
I do wonder exactly where they're gonna run people, because some folks really love running the Skywrath in the mid lane, just to ensure that your mid ends up winning that initial, just maybe get half a level advantage, make sure that you start off with 4 last hits to their 0. But it looked like Sky had headed up top initially.
Yeah.
So
He's still up there, that's curious.
it would be a really hard lane for them to contest. They're going to give it a go onto this Coddle. Already has taken a lot of damage. 2 more seconds on that next Arcane Bolt, and they will get first blood. Thanks to a misstep there by Coddle.
What are the odds that the squishiest hero on the Drexel Dagons will run up that hill?
Yeah, not great for the squishiest hero, right? You're kind of like,
Yeah.
don't know if I should have gone up there. So, but either way, we're gonna see a good start for the offlaner. This is really nice for Slaughter, right? You just get a little bit of extra gold, and of course for the Skywrath getting the first blood, Sky can go get boots. You're already a really fast hero.
I'm actually gonna bypass it for now. Going for another Null Tally.
Yeah, that's a bit, like, I don't know if that's good from the standpoint of move speed always seems like a really big buff, but of course is rocking that Arcane Bolt. We have another engagement up in the top lane, a nice Slithering Crush onto 2, another Arcane Bolt, but the Coddle spam will get the first kill, and Sola unable to close the gap and get the next one. So, that will be that.
Unfortunate there that the lower health here was the Ogre. And with Ogre, 8 armor, level 1, that's just almost insurmountable to kill at level 1, so...
Also,
Geo was
hella
probably
health
the better
regen.
target there, but yeah, the health regen too is nuts.
So, and because the Skywrath, like you mentioned, because the Skywrath's up top, the bottom lane, Faceless Void isn't getting harassed out nearly as much. Although I think they could still pound into him a bit with auto attacks. They might just be waiting for another level. So
He currently has 5 more CS than Drow. She has a measly 2.
it's not great. I will, understand what the Drow's going through. She definitely has a big wind-up on her auto attack. And if you aren't a Drow spammer, you may not be used to the amount that you have to wind things up.
And conversely, the Phantom Lancer rather is sitting on 3 CS, so it's not like she's being completely outdone. They're both having a real rough time in these pretty aggressive, focused off lanes.
Yeah, it's really interesting for both sides. We'll have to see if Skywrath can rotate effectively, or if the supports on DU can rotate effectively, because right now the one advantage that they do have on DU is that their Faceless Void is getting a lot of work done being the only hero down bottom. So perhaps DU supports can make some... Not looking like it, as they are just sticking up on top.
Yeah, I mean, this lane is going pretty well for Cornell. Like, it's obviously not great losing the Skywrath Mage to the aggression up there. And speaking of which, Ogre and Keeper, if they keep these two at this aggressive positioning, I imagine that Sky will leave. I can't really imagine that Sky wants to spend all of his time up here.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd spot. I'm even though they did end up losing the Skywrath earlier, I think that for Cornell, this is fine because they're keeping 3 heroes busy, right? If Oracle wants to go rotate off onto Medusa, who's actually having a hard time as we speak, she can potentially do that. So I just don't know. I'm not sure who's really getting the most out of this. And taking a look at the CS, it does look like things are slightly ahead for Cornell. I say as I completely whiff on seeing Medusa die.
Yeah, she is having a really rough time in this lane. Is double damager as well. As you were talking about earlier with the Drought Aura, that Storm Spirit's lane just gets so drastically easier. And Skywrath Mage hasn't even been there. He's been top this whole time.
There's those up and downs, right? Because ideally you're like, hey, Medusa, you've got longer range than the Storm Spirit. Storm Spirit traditionally very short range. But it does look like Cakes has been very effective at using that Static Remnant to harass the Medusa, and also just kind of backing out to mana up when he needs to, instead of taking the full Wiggle Snake. So, we have some Illuminate jungling attempts. Nobody gets any lost hits there. Finally, oh gosh, did I just see that right? Did the Hellbear get the lost hits?
I've only seen 9 gold go the way of the Slardar.
It's so saddening. Okay, the Slaughter gets a bunch more. I mean, I completely understand this. They're trying to contest a stack, but again, DU has 3 heroes there. They should be able to do a better job of controlling things.
Yeah, it's such a tough proposition for them because Slardar is very naturally hard to kill. Put the Skywrath Mage in there as well, and it's just a rough time.
In mid, they're trying for a kill, but they are not in any way going to get it. And actually, the TP canceled. Yeah, it's a top lane. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. It's not one that I've seen much of, and I wonder if for DU the support's time maybe better spent stacking, getting Coddle some extra levels by going off to the jungle, but different things, different game. We do see an unsuccessful rotation on Oracle onto the mid lane, but now they're going on to Faceless Void. He'll be unsilenced in a second, and he is going to be fine.
Yeah, again, the Faceless Void is just having... It's a real tough time in lane, especially when the Oracle's there, but that being said, he's actually doing fairly well in lane. More CS than the Drow, more denies. He's getting his way. He's almost got his 6.
Yeah, that's a huge amount of denies for an offlaner. Like, you never want to realize or find out that your offlaner has 10 denies at 5 minutes in. It's somewhat devastating. So, for Cornell, they do have to be careful. This Faceless Void can become a real player, and he doesn't have to be in the safe lane to become the carry. If he just keeps farming up a storm down there, he can transition into more carry Faceless Void items, or just get a really fast initiation tool like the Blink.
Yeah, and we've been talking a bit about the missteps of the supports going on in the top lane. However, a good Chrono from Void, that being said, mid lane, actually.
Oh yeah, I mean, both sides trying to get stuff done. They're out of mana. The Chronosphere in mid lane. The Courier, I didn't know that. Did you know Courier is not stopped by Chronosphere? Medusa does go down. Chronosphere not enough to save this Medusa, but holy Hannah, as you said, I mean, that was, in my opinion, a good Chronosphere. He just doesn't have the damage yet to back it up.
Yeah, the Medusa was already quite low, and the Chrono using it as soon as it's up, usually a great play, right? Going for those picks. In that case, he was trying to save the Medusa's life, but as you're mentioning, this is a Void with Stout Shield and Treads. He's had his way in the off lane, but that Storm Spirit is a different story altogether.
Yeah, it's early days. I'm still surprised. I did not know Courier could move freely in Chronosphere.
He airdropped the item.
Oh yeah. Maybe he might actually just be above it. Like, that may be how they coded it. I'm still wondering, because this is something that may come into play later on. I could see that being valuable, but never mind. We will focus back on this one. Skywrath, again, just spamming that Q, causing some problems for PL. PL's still pretty far behind, you know? Drow's done some good work catching up, especially since the Faceless Void has been out of lane. But PL's still pretty far behind when it comes to CS.
This is Cornell's game plan to its core, right? Just ruin this Phantom Lancer. The 2 Null Talismans just give Sky like all the resources he needs to just punish the PL, harassing him through Arcane Bolts, and then just his auto attacks now are just, they hit pretty hard. They have the Drow still. So they're doing a very good job of keeping this PL down.
And it's going to cause problems for DU because they already don't have any amazing synergy between these two cores, so you are relying on Phantom Lancer to have that good timing on the defusal, and you are relying on Faceless Void to have quite a bit of farm. Speaking of, there's the silence. They're going to go for another Arcane Bolt. Can they catch on up? The stun will make it very difficult. Doppelganger is available here for Phantom Lancer. Storm, though, zips on in, zips over the top, has a little bit more mana to zip, possibly, doesn't end up needing it, goes over onto the side, onto the Coddle, while they're working in on Ogre Magi. There's no Chronosphere available for 3 more seconds, but they will have killed everyone before Chronosphere is available, and if this Faceless Void sticks around, he'll be going down too.
Yeah, that was not ideal by any stretch. Chrono just coming up. That's salting the wound a bit. Almost 1,500 gold swinging in the favor of Cornell. Drow farming all the while. Yeah, not too much good to pull there from Drexel. It was just kind of disastrous.
The one upside is it did create a little bit of space in the mid lane for Medusa, and this is another thing that is really worrying, right? Cornell are running a Drow strat. They have this timing window where they will be amped up in damage compared to DU, and Cornell should be able to push in probably 5 more minutes. They might even be able to get the tier 3s in that 5-minute window just with how Drow works. Medusa takes a long time to get online, on the other hand. So does Phantom Lancer. Probably needs at least that defusal to start fighting. Other than Illuminate, I'm not sure I see Drexel's B-push.
Yeah, and you could give this Medusa all the time she wants in the mid lane. Give her until 20 minutes. This Storm is a threat now, and he will continue to be... Actually, Chrono Burn on the bot lane.
They're gonna get the kill. It was a really interesting kill from the standpoint of Drow saw all 3 of them come over the wood, but I don't think she expected they were gonna Chronosphere her. Oh, and speaking of Zap and Storm going in onto mid, again, they just have to do so much damage against a Medusa.
And the Drow death is unfortunate, but I still think Cornell has a pretty commanding spot in this game. Storm is free to do whatever he wants. There is not a single threat on Drexel that could take down this Storm. So he's free to roam wherever he wants. The Drow strat is a Drow strat. They will get towers, it will build up a gold lead, and the Storm will become even harder to kill. So unless Drexel could drag this out and get this Medusa and Phantom Lancer into fighting shape, this is going to be a really, really rough stretch of time for him.
Now, they do have some ways of dragging the game out, right? They have Illuminate, they can start maxing it to make sure that when the pushes come, they have something to go on there. But as you mentioned, for Drexel, the name of the game is now all kind of dragging things out. And with Storm Spirit already being so farmed, this gets really scary because he's just going to zap behind wherever they're trying to defend and maybe pick off the Coddle, maybe pick off the Medusa if things continue this way.
Yeah, and that leaves the supports out to dry as well, with the Medusa and Phantom Lancer taking farm all around the map whenever they can. Coddles has to resort to the jungle, and when Storm is this big, you're not safe there. Storm can be roaming and will be roaming pretty much every chance he gets, and that's just... This Keeper's going to be food. He's currently sitting at 600 HP.
Oh, Faceless Void does end up finally going down in the bottom lane with help from Slaughter, who already has a Blink Dagger. Top lane so successful that the Slaughter is second on the net worth. And yeah, here comes the push that we talked about. While Cornell, they've got 2 tools of easily getting these pushes done. They can blink past the tower with the Slaughter and make sure they catch someone, or they can Storm zip past. Speaking of zipping, there we go, in mid. They're actually going to drop Medusa's ult. Mystic Flare slightly off the mark, but one more auto attack brings her down. They're working on the Ogre Magi next as well. It's taking a lot of damage, gets blown up. Illuminate not stopping this Storm Spirit, although maybe some auto attacks. Well, no, he's still not dead. Just somebody attack him. Finally, he's caught on the edge of the Chronosphere. Can Oracle? No, Oracle walks into it. Can't do... Oh my goodness, disarms. And so Cakes, is he really just going to walk away? One more hit. They managed to get Storm Spirit. A huge amount of gold going the way of Faceless Void. There is no mana on this Slaughter. And despite a very nice attempted save from Oracle, not enough to get Storm out.
I was about to call the game right there. Until that Chronosphere, that fight was just every fear I had for Drexel materialized. But that Chronosphere catching 3, and then the blunder by Oracle to just wander on in, costing the Storm his life, that's going to be a pretty big pickup for Drexel. 1,000 gold going the way of the Void. 1,000.
It's definitely hard, I think, when you're the Oracle pre Aether Lens to really play around the Chronosphere, because you might click on someone and think that you've got just enough range, because a lot of Oracle spells do have quite a bit of range, but it's really after the Aether Lens that you're able to just kind of
Dire's top
ignore
tower is under
the
attack. Dire's
just
top
let them
tower has
ignore.
fallen.
So
This is where Cornell has two options here. Well, the Storm is obviously going to be Storm and just zip around the map, farm,
Radiant's
pick up
bottom
kills where he
tower
can,
is under
but
attack.
the map is just open for Cornell. I imagine after this last tier 1 tower falls for him, they will just have complete and utter dominance of this map. Slardar is the only hero on this team not affected by drow damage, and he still does a whopping amount of damage just with Amp and Blink. Crush? Watch this Ogre.
yeah, it's not what he's going for. Unfortunately, does miss the crush, but they are going to get themselves a quick pick off on, oh, almost. I said quick, but actually, Faceless Void living for ages there. Mystics slightly off the mark.
And this is just going to be the name of the game. They just stay as 5, and what's Drexel going to do about it? Unless Chronosphere is up, which is over 2 minutes at this point.
Another
It's not a
good
good time.
jump forwards. We can hear Storm coming on in, and they just blow up Ogre.
Boy, they
Dire's middle tower has fallen.
never want to call it over by the 15-minute mark. And the drow strats do eventually slow down, but Cornell's playing exactly like they need to.
Yeah,
This is the D push. This is the entirety of the D push coming out from Drexel right now. Keeper of the Light, Illuminate. And it's just, it's not enough. It's too slow.
I think Cornell's doing a really good job of playing around their draft. I think for Drexel, despite doing well on the bottom lane with the Faceless Void, it doesn't look like it was enough. Again, if they can just buy time, they can keep getting, just use Chronosphere, get a pick off on someone, maybe catch the Storm Spirit out of position again. He's got a Bloodstone now, and every time you kill him, it's super impactful. I think that that's definitely Drexel's way back into the game, but as we talked about, they have to make a lot of space
Dire's
here,
bottom
right?
tower is
It's
under
not
attack.
just, hey, let's, we get a kill here and there and we'll get back into this. They have to really hold out for probably another 15 to 30 minutes against
The
this
Medusa
Strauss.
is 400 gold away from completing her Dragon Lance, which then sets her back about 2,000 gold that she wants for the Yasha to get her faster farming. And then what? What does the game look like by then? They're essentially down a core until this Medusa gets online, and she's a long ways away from that. With the Slardar, with the Storm, she's just gonna have a really rough time getting into this, and it's gonna take a play like this, a smoke. Chronosphere could be the name of the game here.
Oh yeah, they go for it. They managed to catch one on the edge of the Chronosphere, but unfortunately the Drow not caught out. Storm just zapping around the team fight, and it's not enough. Faceless Void gonna try to run into the tree lines to escape. Drow still working on the Ogre Magi, who will go down. Slaughter ready to go again with mana leaked off of him, and they'll get Coddle. They're looking to get another. They'll back it up and just take the tower.
And that's the play Drexel needs to make, but not how they wanted it executed. Just disastrous in the end. The Chronosphere just barely missing on the Drow, but just barely is enough to lose you a team fight, and that's pretty evident as Cornell takes down a tier 2.
Yeah,
Dire's structures are fortified.
Slithering Crush opening up,
Oh,
and they will
Lord.
pick off Faceless Void immediately. We're also going to see the looking to be the base broken coming out here from Cornell, and yeah, they're just really doing a good job of using their timings to their advantage. They maybe need to back out a little bit here on Cornell as they're very low on mana, so Oracle can't heal them all up, but yeah, just the fact that Storm right now can jump all the way in, super devastating.
Luckily for Drexel, Cornell was out of gas there. I don't think they have... They do have the single pair of mana boots up on the Oracle. Skywrath went shreds, that's interesting. Oh, and he's sitting on a huge chunk of change too. Jeez, this is looking bleak for Drexel.
Yeah, I think the Skyrath went treads just because he's hoping to get more of that int up. They have on Oracle the Arcanes, so he might be thinking my team's, other than the Storm, not super mana intensive, so I'm just gonna be a bit more selfish.
There's a 15,000 net worth discrepancy at the 1730 mark. That is monstrous. That is...
Yeah, it's there's a stat in professional Dota that is if any team has 1,000 gold per minute, I think it's like 100% win rate in professional games. Now we are seeing what looks like a gank attempt up on top. They will silence up PL. They're dropping the Mystic Flare as well. He tries to walk out of it, unable to, and he will go down.
I believe he actually silenced the creep there. That was almost... He almost got out of there, the Phantom Lancer, but it matters not. This Drow in Sky hit really hard.
It was also just a very hard Phantom Lancer game, right? Because you're playing into 2 silences, you need Manta. Doppel is normally your escape tool, but of course, since it's one of your spells and not an item, you can't use it when silenced. So you need Manta, you need Diffusal. It's just a lot before you come online as a PL here.
Dire's top tower has fallen.
All of Cornell, too. We've been speaking a bit to just how far behind Drexel is, but Cornell is playing this strat exactly as they need to. The Slardar's very well ahead and staying ahead. Oracle's staying relevant. Skywrath is making all these plays happen. It's just very well played from Cornell here, and they're keeping themselves in this position that they set themselves up for.
Yeah, I think, as you said, it's just a really well-executed strategy, and this is often why we do see Drow banned, right? It's hard to play up against if the other team is coordinated. Slaughter looking for that 4-man crush, but not gonna go for it. The tower does go down, and it looks like Slaughter thinking about going now. He did pop up that sprint, but nope. Folks backing out. They could easily take Roche here on Cornell.
Against Roche, Drexel has to do seemingly the impossible. Not only do they need the Chronosphere to catch on the bulk of Cornell, they need to kill the Storm twice, I'm assuming. I don't imagine they would give it to the Drow. But
yeah, this is the stage of the game where you most likely give it to the Storm, right? He's got Bloodstone charges, but still room for item growth, so it's something where the Storm takes the Aegis.
Looking for me?
yeah, this is...
Has fallen to the raid.
Drexel has the right idea. About 10 seconds too late. And
I mean, that always happens, though, into Drow strats. Like, I cannot fault Drexel there for not getting there in time. It is really hard to predict exactly when the Roche is going to fall, and I believe that Gorgon, who you'll be casting with later, has a stat on this. Basically, games where you attempt to contest Roche, normally whoever is attempting to contest the Roche has trouble, or attempting to stack the Aegis. We're gonna see Medusa in a lot of trouble. All of her mana has been drained. Cake still has that DD. We'll just blow her up.
she's sitting on so little. She's still worth nearly 500 gold, but she is just not in fighting shape. This is going to need to be around 15 to 20 minutes of getting this Medusa relevant again.
I mean, on the upside for DU, right, if they continue to hold, they will end up back in it just through the nature of comeback gold, but they'd have to get kills, and they have to hold, and Drow is just sitting there sieging.
This Void represents their hopes and dreams this game. Phantom Lancer also sitting in the same boat with nearly nothing, and they're just going to go in the Void. That's that.
You mentioned it. I mean, Cornell realizing it as well. Without the Faceless Void, there's very little they have to worry about when it comes to these team fights. And so Cakes now can just stand up on the high ground with his Aegis, 20 charges on his Bloodstone. And zapping forward's gonna try to pick up the Ogre here. PL throws a lance, but it just doesn't do enough. 2 heroes silenced up. They're gonna blow up Medusa as well. PL tries to doppel away. Do they have anything else? They've amped up the correct PL. They are throwing these arcane bolts spam into him. One more? No, won't be enough. No, as I say that though, Storm was thinking about zipping on in. And he has a blink. We have a Storm with a blink dagger.
Dire's bottom tower has fallen.
There's not really too much else to say about this game. I think we've hit on all the key points, but I think this game could properly be summed up by Storm Blink Dagger, and that would tell you a good chunk of how this game transgressed.
Storm probably gonna have to burn the Aegis here. He's in a little bit of a pickle. He'll actually zap mostly away. One more hit will bring him down. The nice 2-man stun coming out from Slaughter, though. A Chronosphere right on top of the Storm's head, and they will get themselves Slaughter. If they can get something more, DU, maybe they can find it, but no, it looks like Faceless Void gonna be burned down. Storm picking off Coddle, going for Ogre Magi now. Gonna kill off that hero as well. And looking to end this game on 26 Bloodstone charges. Medusa trying to kill off Oracle will manage, along with PL, to get that kill, but Storm just gonna blink away. Maybe thinking about going back in.
You know, that was one of the more convincing fights we've seen from Drexel. You know, the 3-man chrono was perfect, and then he caught another with someone walking in.
Oh, the silence on Medusa, but he doesn't quite hit her, and she will be out of mana. Nice ion, oh, mana shield, one more. Oh gosh,
Whoa.
He just blinks over the top. He did get blinded though. He needs a little bit of help, and actually Cakes will manage to get the kill despite being blinded, and that'll make it 27 charges. He is pretty low on mana, in a little bit of an awkward spot. He blinks forwards, burns all of his mana to jump out. Now with Slaughter nearby, he should be fine.
The Storm Spirit currently has the net worth of the Phantom Lancer, Medusa, and Faceless Void combined.
Yeah, I mean, Storm's playing really well.
He's exploiting this lead to the utmost, and the Blink Dagger is even useful on Storm. That's an odd sentence to say. They're just going for more.
Nice Slithering Crush jump forwards, the silence on Faceless Void, and they will blow him right up.
It's just a shooting gallery. They just pick one and kill him. Over and over and over, and there's nothing Drexel can do without Chronosphere. It's almost like they need to sit either as 5 or in Fountain to prevent this from happening, and that's just not feasible.
I think that part of the really well done part from Cornell, and maybe something for Drexel to think about next game, is that we've got a little bit of murder going on onto PL. I think that Cornell did a really good job as we watch Medusa also potentially go down. She's not dead yet. The Slithering Crush actually off the mark. They throw out a really early false promise onto Storm, but he still can't kill off Medusa. I think that Cornell did a really good job of drafting a lineup that hits its peak nicely, and Drexel just didn't pick anything to kind of deal with that, right? The Medusa last pick felt especially out of the blue, as she was another hero who does need quite a lot of farm.
That seems more like a denial pick. The Medusa seems like something you don't want Cornell to have, but they had last pick. That's not even within the realm of possibility. This Storm has just been doing work, and yeah, you could argue that the draft from Drexel was subpar. But this execution from Cornell has really been impressing me. This is probably the best, the best executed draft strat I've personally seen on the CSL stream thus far.
It comes down to the classic. Cornell were able to win 2 out of 3 lanes, and that really puts you ahead. Even though Drexel definitely won bottom, unfortunately their top lane didn't have the impact that they were hoping for. And so that really does help Cornell get a good start. Speaking of, we're gonna see a zap up top. Phantom Lancer in a lot of trouble, and he will fall. Can they follow up some more? Slithering Crush, they have a nice Mystic Flare, and that'll be bye-bye to Faceless Void. That's gonna be no Chronosphere for 43 seconds, as he doesn't have buyback.
We are rapidly approaching the 35,000 net worth differential at 25. I think I'm going to call this one in the books. This is probably, as Drexel, you're thinking about the next game. You're reflecting on this, and what picks are we doing differently? How can we prevent this Storm massacre?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think, given that their Faceless Void lane went fine, I think that for Drexel it would not be remiss to maybe pick some supports who could rotate mid more easily to help out their mid. Their offlaner clearly didn't really need help. He got a lot out of the lane. And so I think that it's more important to focus on, okay, let's make sure that we have ways of dealing with their timing. We actually have a nice Chronosphere here, unfortunately just shy of Storm being in the fountain. And the False Promise as well coming out, just blowing him up, while Cornell farms the fountain.
Storm lost a total of 25% of his maximum HP.
Yeah.
In that Chronosphere. It's this game would take about 3 Drexels to get back into.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of I really do think a lot of it came down to the laning. The Drow strat got themselves off to a decent start, but a really good start on the Storm, and unfortunately that dual offlane worked out super well for Cornell, so Drexel didn't really have the formed PL they were hoping into the mid game. Either way, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us. Stay tuned. Game 2 will be back right quick.
Ben, Sam, and Ken are on separate journeys to defeat the menacing Vile Dragon. But let's just say luck isn't on their side. If only there was a way for them to find each other and band together. Well, that's why there's Band. It's a mobile app that allows people to come together using common interests. With Band, you can find fellow gamers, chat, schedule gaming sessions, and conduct polls. Stage epic battles with friends while sharing videos and photos along the way. So try Band today. Band. Be together.